Could I please have the roll call?
Councilmember Abdelgawad.
Here.
Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Berenson.
Present.
Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Circo.
Present.
Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Kellogg absent. Councilmember Townsend.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Present. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on our agenda is presentation and awards. We have 3 proclamations to give tonight. If I could please ask Monique Lewis to join me here tonight. Do you have anyone else that you'd like to have join you up here? Okay.
That's my son, but
Just your son,
he's
huh?
just my son.
Well, Monique, we want to welcome you up here tonight because as the staff here at the city recommended you for this, you are the one member from the county of Cass that is receiving this award. And I'd like to read this proclamation. It says, whereas Missouri Lieutenant Governor's Senior Service Award promotes and highlights positive accomplishments of Missouri's senior citizens who provide to their communities, and whereas Missouri Lieutenant Governor Mike Parson announced Monique Lewis as one of the 90 winners for the award in 2018, and whereas Monique Lewis served the City of Raymore's Parks and Recreation Board for 10 years and the City Council for 1 year, displaying outstanding leadership, and whereas Monique served as a member of the Raymore Citizen Task Force to prepare and complete an assessment and master plan that led to Raymore achieving gold level recognition as a community for all ages. And whereas Monique volunteers for several nonprofit organizations as a founding member of the Raymore Parks Foundation and as an instructor and facilitator for the Regional Aging Mastery Program. And whereas Monique is an active member of the Silver-Haired Legislature, which promotes conscientious legislative advocacy for Missouri older adults, and whereas the City of Raymore recognizes and commends Monique Lewis for her outstanding dedicated service and commitment she displays to the Raymore community and to the organizations she is involved in. Now therefore I, Christopher P. Turnbow, Mayor of the City of Raymore, do hereby call for the citizens of Raymore to honor Monique Lewis for being chosen as a recipient of the Lieutenant Governor's Senior Service Award and recognize her personal charge to volunteerism. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Raymore to be affixed this 14th day of May, 2018. Congratulations, Monique. Well deserved. Well deserved. Thank you very much. You want to say something?
I want to say something.
Oh, go right ahead. I wouldn't expect anything else.
To all the councilmen, hello, and congratulations on being nominated. I want to thank Mr. Cataract. Where is he? Oh, there he is. Mr. Cataract and Nathan Mustine were the 2 people, I believe, who were instrumental in nominating me. It was a wonderful day at the Capitol last Monday when I received this award from the Lieutenant Governor and from Senator Ed Emery. I am very honored. I love doing volunteer, and I love what I'm doing. And somebody asked me, how much longer are you going to do this? So I answered, well, I just renewed my driver's license, so I can drive for another 3 years. And as long as I am able and can understand what everybody wants, I will volunteer. And I recommend volunteering to a lot of people. If you don't work or you have nothing else to do but sit on your porch, don't do that. Get up and volunteer. There are many places here in Cass County that you can volunteer for. And we will be grateful. Any senior that does this will be grateful and will be, well, they will feel good about themselves. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't mean to No, this is my son, and he lives with me, and he helps me, which is a good thing for me.
Next is our National Public Works Week recognition. I know that we had a special pancake breakfast last Thursday morning. I was unable to attend, and Mr. Barber stood in my place to read this proclamation at that event. But we wanted to make this a public proclamation as well, not just at a private get-together. So I would like to read this, and Mike, if you could please step forward to accept. Mr. Mike Crass. The proclamation reads, whereas public works infrastructure, facilities, and services are of vital importance to sustainable communities and to the health, safety, and well-being of people of Raymore, and whereas such facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees from the state and local units of government and the private sector who are responsible for the must planned design, build, operate, and maintain the transportation, water supply, sewages, and refuse disposal systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential to serve our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the United States of America to gain knowledge of and to maintain an interest and understand the importance of public work and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2018 marks the 58th annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association, now therefore I, Christopher P. Turnbow, Mayor of the City of Raymore, do hereby proclaim the week of May 20th through 26th, 2018 as National Public Works Week in the City of Raymore, Missouri, and urge all citizens to recognize the importance of our Public Works Department and the substantial contributions they make to our health, safety, and welfare. And witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Raymore to be affixed this 14th day of May 2018. Thank you, Mike. Congratulations. Thank you. And Chief, if you could please come forward. And all the officers that are in the room, please step forward. This is an important week and one that I have a personal interest in as well. Yeah, come on over here too.
Let's stack up on this side.
I see several here I hired, not all of them though. This is a wonderful proclamation, and if you guys get a chance to drive by my house, I have a back the badge, a wreath on my front door. It's pretty cool looking. I bought it over in
We never
Belmont.
drive by your house.
I know you don't. Anyway, this proclamation reads, whereas President John F. Kennedy signed a proclamation in 1962 designating May 14 as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week that day falls in National Police Week, as National Police Week. And whereas President Kennedy declared, it is important that people throughout our country know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of their police departments, and that members of our law enforcement agencies recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence or disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression or intimidation. And whereas officers of the Raymore Police Department have sworn an oath to uphold the law and provide dedicated service and protection for our community, and whereas it is important and proper that the citizens of Raymore recognize the contribution and efforts of our police officers, not just during this special week, but all throughout the year. Now therefore I, Christopher P. Turnbow, Mayor of the City of Raymore, Missouri, do hereby proclaim the week of May 13 through 19 as National Police Week in the City of Raymore to honor the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Raymore to be affixed this 14th day of May 2018. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Please.
Well, Mayor Turnbow knows that I can't help myself, that I have to say something. Only to say that I couldn't be prouder of this police department and the officers that serve the community every day. Former Chief Turnbow turned a great department over to me 6 years ago, and I am proud every day to serve with the folks that you see up here. So thank you all very much.
Thank you one and all for being here tonight for those proclamations. Next on our agenda is personal appearances. Mr. Jack Hopkins would like to address the council regarding Tobacco 21 initiative. Mr. Hopkins.
Good evening. My name is Jack Hopkins, and I live at 309 Johnston Drive here in Raymore. As I watched your work session on April the 16th, where you heard from presentation from parties promoting the Tobacco 21 issue, I was reminded of a scene from The Odyssey by Homer. If you read the book or studied Greek mythology, you might remember the sirens. Sirens were dangerous creatures who lured sailors through their enchanting music and singing voices to shipwreck on their rocky shores of their coastline. As I thought about that, I thought it was especially appropriate since the mayor's invited the sirens, and he is a former retired sailor, as you all know.
Yeah, I met him while I was on duty.
Yep. For those of you not interested in Greek mythology, the dictionary defines a siren's song as an enticing but dangerous appeal, especially a misleading one. Synonyms include allure, enticement, siren call, and temptation. At the work session, I heard the sirens sing an enchanting song and seemed to pull you in to their shores, even though before you listened to them, you knew better. In the Odyssey, Odysseus, pronounced the name incorrectly, gave his sailors wax to put in their ears so they wouldn't be lured to their doom. I'm going to abbreviate the story slightly. But you might remember that Odysseus had his sailors tie him to the mast. He did hear the allure of this song and actually would have crashed into the shore if he had not had his sailors continue to keep him tied up. When he got away from the sirens, he knew better. And if you remember right, since he did that, the sirens died because in mythology, they would die if someone didn't act on their singing. I should have brought earplugs for you all so that if you hear that allure of those siren songs again, you don't listen to them. And I guess I'm hoping that you will vote against any proposed ordinance and avoid the oncoming destruction if you do hear from those sirens again. The sirens are telling you to ignore state and federal law, which sets the legal age to purchase tobacco at 18. They even told you this was their intention. If you had your earwax in, as Odysseus' sailors would have, you would have been protected and you would have realized that that's crazy for a municipality to do something like that. They told you need to act to save the kids, but you don't need to bother policing children who smoke and chew before they turn 21. They also said the city doesn't need to have any skin in the game. You should just put the burden on your merchants. They told you to take the freedom away from adults, not children. Adults who are legally able to vote, enter into binding contracts such as purchasing real estate or borrowing money, getting married, purchasing long guns, be tried as an adult for criminal activities, refuse medical treatment, play the lottery, join the military, and kill and be killed for our freedom. And ironically, they can be elected to many city councils across the country. They didn't explain why you shouldn't police the kids, even though they're the ones who you're supposed to be focusing on and trying to protect with this ordinance. Do you think their song is written to mislead or simply to eliminate the obstacle and gain your approval? If you had your earwax in, wouldn't you realize how ludicrous this is? If you listen to their song and follow their logic, you'd let any minor drink all the alcohol they wanted without any repercussions. They said you don't need to worry about taking the income out of the pockets of tax-paying employers in your community because the impact is so minimal. They said to ignore the fact, even though all of you, I've heard set up on this diocese when you were running for election, saying you want to promote small business, and you do anything to attract and help keep small businesses in your community. The Sirens didn't ask you to contribute to the cost of the proposed ordinance to make it more appealing and to eliminate any obstacles to gain your approval. But you know you should not force the merchants in Raymore to do your police work. If you get away and you stop and think about it, you know it's not right. The Sirens have crafted their music very well. As I think they even shared with you, this started in Massachusetts and California. A couple of states I'm sure that citizens of Raymore want to follow. So much bad legislation starts in these places. The Sirens told you the only people who would stand up and challenge the ordinance would be the folks who value freedom and understand its dangerous temptations. They also said it would be the merchants who get up and complain because they would be hurt by your actions. You appear to be mesmerized by their song. I know most of you, and you would not have ever thought of hurting your merchants, taking away freedoms, if you had your earwax in and weren't mesmerized by their siren song. Freedom isn't easy. Freedom isn't free. It's messy. It's difficult. If freedom means anything, it means the freedom of adults to make choices, especially controversial choices like tobacco, guns, and alcohol. We don't need a Bill of Rights or personal freedoms to protect the rights of the majority. We need them to protect the rights of the minority. Like it or not, tobacco products and e-cigarettes are lawful adult products which are taxed and regulated at the state and federal government level. You are now looking to unilaterally and arbitrarily raise the age to sell tobacco and e-cigarettes from 18-year-old adults, not children, adults, to 21-year-old adults. I think it was Ronald Reagan that said, government should only do for the people what the people can't do for themselves. Those pushing this arrogant proposal don't think that many people will see this as an elimination of a personal freedom or an arbitrary swipe at our local merchants. I, for one, do. While this issue is currently about tobacco, what is next? Are you going to outlaw Big Daddy's donuts? Because none of us surely need a donut, right? I believe that obesity is actually a #1 leading cause of death in the United States, not lung cancer, but I'm not promoting tobacco either. Or are you going to outlaw McDonald's? Because that's another, way that people become obese. I'm not saying all the things that McDonald's sell are problems either. Or are you going to target the legal age of children to drive in Raymore, since accidents are the #1 leading cause of death among folks under 25 years old? And by the way, people's brains don't fully develop until they're 25. Or will you outlaw possession of firearms? You know the Sirens would approve of all those terrible ideas. Please step back and escape the Sirens' spell. Vote against Tobacco 21 if an ordinance comes before you. Vote to retain our freedoms, and vote against hurting our merchants. This is a state and national issue. It's not a local issue. Stop the Black Plague before it crosses the county lines. Thank you all very much for your time and attention this evening.
Thank you, sir. And now we'll move on to staff reports. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Carteret to make a staff report for community development.
Thank you, sir. 2 items this evening. Just want to start out, give the council a brief update on building permit activity. I always like to talk about the activity that's going on in our community. This spring's been very active for new home construction. We're actually ahead of where we were a year ago, which was record-setting for the past previous 10 years, we had the highest number of permits last year. We're a little bit ahead right now. I don't know that we'll be able to sustain that to the level we had last year, but later on in your agenda tonight, we have 2 new subdivision phases with builders waiting to secure permits. So we still feel that it's a very strong market for residential development in the city, so we're excited about that. We're actually ahead of the actual valuation for permits that we had a year ago, well ahead, so pleased about that as well. Second item is the go over the schedule for Planning and Zoning Commission. They do have a meeting tomorrow evening. They do have 4 items on the agenda dealing with 2 different properties. The first development they're going to consider will be an expansion of our Brightside Daycare, which is located on 58 Highway out by J Highway. They have secured ownership of a property adjacent to their existing facility, so they plan on constructing an additional building to expand the services they provide for daycare. There'll also be a minor plat as part of that. We have to plat the property that they'll be developing. Then the second item would actually be a public hearing. Compass Health, which is locally known as Pathways, they have a current facility behind Country Club Bank. They are purchasing 8 acres of property at the corner of Sunset and 58 Highway. They're not purchasing the front corner. That actually has been purchased by Dr. Whitford, but they are purchasing the back 8 acres. Their property line will really start at the back line of where the Price Chopper is. So in order for them to develop that 8 acres, they will be extending Sunset Lane to provide access to the site. Part of their proposal is to develop a new flagship facility. They currently are in a building that's about 9,000 square foot. They're proposing anywhere to 50 to 60,000 square foot office building there to provide full medical, dental, and behavioral health services. So very exciting that they're growing in our community, going to be a significant employer in our community. That project does require that property to have different zoning. It's been zoned agricultural. It's just a holding zone for that property. They are proposing to reclassify the zoning to professional office. So we'll have commercial on the front corner at the active actual corner, and this property would be back behind it. There's a small pond on the property. They'll be able to develop their building around the pond. So very excited about that project. We had a good neighbor meeting on that item. Had a lot of neighbors interested in that that wanted to know what was happening and everything. So a lot of good comments. So we look forward to that hearing tomorrow evening. A second part of that request tomorrow evening will be to plat the property again. Again, they have to extend Sunset Lane to provide access for that development. So those are the only items the Planning Commission currently has scheduled on its agenda. That concludes staff report.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Any questions of staff? Thank you, sir. Mr. Fearborn?
Thank you, Mr. Carteret. I would ask Chief Zimmerman to make a report for the police department.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Before I introduce Officer Jesse Walkingstick, I would like to share with the council a presentation made to our officers in recognition of Police Week from our chaplains. This is our new patch, and so if you get a chance to come down and take a look at it, the chaplains actually had these produced and presented to the officers in honor of this week. So now it is my pleasure to introduce, oh, there's 2 of you. Officer Jesse Walkingstick and Officer Rebecca Badgett, who are going to talk about bicycles.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council. If I haven't had the pleasure to meet you, I'm Master Patrol Officer Jesse Walkingstick. I've worked for the city for 12 years. I've served as a patrol officer for the last 8. Last year, I attended International Police Mountain Bike Association training, known as IPEMBA, and was certified to be a bike patrol officer for the city of Raymore. As you guys are aware, you approved funding to purchase 4 bikes for the department to replace the old fleet. The department elected to purchase the Trek Excalibur 9. We also purchased updated equipment for these bikes for the fleet, for all 4 of the bikes. We used the local vendor of Dave's Bike Shop that just came in next door. They fulfilled the order in its entirety. They ordered all the accessories we needed, even stuff outside of Trek they were able to purchase for us. 2 of the bikes will replace the former fleet of the Fujis, and then 2 will be additional new bikes for additional officers as they come on. With this bike, does have the front fork for us, so when we have to go over curbs and stuff, which is standard for IPEMBA. It's spec'd out for IPEMBA standards and training, so when we attend their training, we're up to standard of what they require for the bikes and for their certification process. Of course, we have a nice bag that has police on here. We have LED lights, and it even has a nice brand new little light for our red and blue, so everyone can see us coming, and we have to do traffic at some local events where we can have that for everyone to see. It's the command staff's desire to have a trained bike officer on each shift going forward. That's an area they're addressing. And some of the questions I get is how do we use Bike Patrol in Raymore? One thing we've targeted this year with the new bus restrictions is we go for the walking path. I've utilized it at Raymore Elementary quite a bit because they have a lot of walkers. And I just ride with them as they go home from school and in the mornings with them as they ride in. The little guys on bikes love it. They like me to ride with them and always reminding them to stop at their intersections and to be looking for other traffic and be mindful. Then after we do that in the mornings, I hit the trails because we have a lot of morning traffic on our walking trails and walking paths. We go out there and redo that morning and night, same with the school. We also do our residential areas and business districts. We have the bike out at the community events, Fall Festival, the Spirit of America event. You always see us out there. And we do our bike rodeos. We did one with Dave's this year, as some of you were aware of. We also do safety fairs, and I do presentations at for little Cub Scouts when they have stuff they need to do. This June, the department will be sending Officer Lance Goddard to instructor course, which will be held in St. Louis. It's where the IPEMBA conference will be this year, so they'll have a lot of people out there, and one of the services they will provide will be for him to be certified as a trainer. So when he comes back, he'll be able to train our officers progressively as we go forward. You know, at this point, you know, I'd like to remind our motoring public that we do have a lot of crosswalks that cross over the roadways that connect our paths. So it's important to be mindful of our walkers and our bikers, and that our bikers be mindful of the walkers and runners on the paths when we're utilizing them. I'd just like to thank you for your support for this program. I've already been out on it, and it's enjoyable. So thank you so much.
Jess. Appreciate it. Anybody have any questions or comments? Mr. Holman?
Thank you for the presentation. That was very informative. I thought you could have bragged on yourself a little bit more. IPEMBA goes into going up and down stairs, teaches you how to cycle at the proper speed. You look at that and go, how tough is it to ride a bike? I learned when I was 8. It's amazing what you learn in that week of school. And then I did have just another question. When you were struck in your police cruiser last year, that's not what drove you to Bike Patrol, was it?
No, I was already...
Good to hear.
Well, and Jesse didn't mention either that these bikes, the Trex, Excalibur, are lighter, more maneuverable. They're going to be much easier to get in and out of those tight spots. And he also didn't mention that one of our officers last year actually was able to sneak up on someone.
Oh, that was a couple years ago, yes.
Yeah, breaking into a car, or was it it was a burglary?
Actually, our Bike Patrol officer noticed a suspicious person down in South Sunset, south of Lucy Webb. He contacted them, radioed other officers to come in there. We also noticed a second vehicle in that area, and were determined after a lengthy investigation of inquiring what these people were doing down there, we foiled a home invasion they were preparing to do. Wow. So we took action and were able to just find it, and you know, you might miss that in a patrol car, but he was able to sneak up on them, because you can sneak up people on bikes, believe it or not, on night. So he was able to find them and foil that. So that's just one of the many benefits to it.
Great.
Thanks, Jesse.
Well, thank you. Anyone else? Thanks, Jess. Thanks, Rebecca. We'll see you later. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, officers. Thank you, Chief. Just upcoming schedules for the council. Next Monday night, May 21st, is council work session. 2 items currently on the agenda: annexation update and tornado warning system overview. Next Tuesday night is the Morning View reception at 7 p.m. Next Wednesday night is the Joint Cities meeting at 6:30 p.m. Next Thursday night is MML Westgate in Harrisonville at 6 p.m. Next Friday night, I guess you all have the night off. That concludes staff reports.
And we also have the ribbon cutting coming up this Thursday night, correct, for the new?
This coming Friday,
Friday.
this coming Friday at 4:30.
Okay. Yes. Mr. Barber.
Well, I might add, too, the 21st is picture day for the council, too, isn't it?
Yes.
Anybody have anything else? No, we'll move on to, we don't have committee reports, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. We do have 4 items on the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to dispose of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda to include item A, City Council minutes, April 23rd, 2018. Item B, 2017 concrete projects, acceptance and final payment. Item C, acceptance of public improvements, Edgewater at Creekmore, 6th plat. Item D, acceptance of public improvements, Brookside 10th, lots 400 through 414.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. The motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda and all 4 items. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0. 1 absent. That'll move us into unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3359 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3359 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, creating sections 700 through 800 to replace applicable sections of the current Raymore Administrative Policy Manual.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3359?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3359, Administrative Policy, Sections 700 through 800.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve Bill 3359. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, 1 absent. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3357 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3357 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Vance Brothers, Inc. for the 2018 microsurface project, City Project Number 18-296-202, in the amount of $485,171.80.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3357?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3357, Award of Contract Fiscal Year 2018 Microsurface Project.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? I would ask, there's a change in the amount that shows up in the actual verbiage here. It says 357. I think you cited 401. That's what it was. I was just asking. There was a difference in that amount that was. Yeah, well, it says on our actual agenda, it says under separate action, council has awarded a contract in the amount of $357,257, and I think you cited 4 something.
85.
485, 171, 80. Mike, what's the explanation?
The 357, 257 is in reference to the mill and overlay project. If council will recall, we do our street maintenance in 2 portions. We have a mill and overlay portion and the microsurface portion. The contract, the actual action that's being taken under Bill 3357 is for the microsurface.
Okay.
So that
right.
the
you.
dollar amount read by Councilman Barber is correct for that contract.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, 1 absent. Can I please have the second reading of Bill 3358 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3358 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Tasco LLC for the 155th Street Culvert Project, City Project Number 18-260-202, in the amount of $248,759.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 3358? Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3358, award of contract 155th Street Culvert Project.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3358. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, 1 absent. We'll move on to new business now. The first item under new business is liquor license renewals. We have a list before us of those applicants for liquor license renewals. It requires a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, sir. I'd ask Ms. Warner to make a staff report.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Applications for renewal of liquor licenses are required to be filed with the city clerk on or before May 1st as provided for in City Code Section 600.050E. The following applications have been received and were advertised for this public hearing for the 2018-2019 liquor license year running July 1st through July 30th. Affordable Elegance Gregory's 401 through 407 Pine Street, Bobby's Place 422 West Pine Street, 2 Casey's locations, 234 North Madison Street and 901 East Walnut, Cheap Smokes and Liquors 1236 through 40 West Foxwood Drive, Creekmore Property Owners Association 1112 East 163rd Street, CVS 1215 West Foxwood Drive, Dollar General Store 220 North Madison Street, Eat American Bistro 1500 West Foxwood Drive, Eldorado 3404 West Pine Street, Fraternal Order of Eagles 314 South Washington Street, Freedom Plaza 501 through 505 East Walnut, Gulf Express 715 West Foxwood Drive, Harmon's Convenience Store 101 South Madison Street, Mexico Viejo LLC 1276 West Foxwood Drive, Minsky's Pizza 812 West Foxwood Drive, Mod Pizza, 1937 West Foxwood Drive, Cosentino's Price Chopper, 900 West Foxwood Drive, Qdoba Mexican Eat Store, 1931 West Foxwood Drive, Sam's Club, 141 North Dean Avenue, The Pit Grill and Bar, 1242 through 46 West Foxwood Drive, Walgreens, 1214 West Foxwood Drive, Walmart, 2015 West Foxwood Drive. These businesses have met the city code requirements, and approval by a majority of the council is required. Approval to obtain a license from the city of Raymore is also contingent on approval of the liquor license from the state of Missouri. Representatives of each businesses are in attendance should council have questions. And as outlined in City Code Section 600.090C, any person providing testimony pertaining to the liquor license applications will be sworn to tell the truth by the city clerk, and such testimony will be entered into the record. That concludes my staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. As there are no issues with any of the applications, and there is a public hearing open at this time, I would offer the floor to any of the applicants at this time should they wish to come forward and be sworn in. If there are none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time unless there's a question of any of the applicants from any of the council members. Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time and ask for a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve all 23 stated business entities to have their liquor license renewed.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the liquor license renewals applicants as listed. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. Next item on our agenda is a single liquor license application by J.L. Huang, LLC, DBA China Star, and it also requires a public hearing. I will open the public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Ms. Warner to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you.
Your microphone, Jeannie.
At 1918 West Foxwood Drive, has filed a new application for the remaining portion of the liquor license year for 2017-2018. The applicant has submitted the necessary application and supporting documents as required by City Code. And if approved by the City Council, further approval to obtain the license from the City of Raymore is subject to state licensing approval. The applicant is in attendance should council have any questions. And again, in accordance with City Code Section 600.090C, any person providing testimony pertaining to the liquor license application will be sworn to tell the truth by the city clerk, and such testimony will be entered into the record. That concludes my staff report.
Thank you. Any questions of staff at this time? Since there is a public hearing and the public hearing is open at this time, I would offer the floor to the applicant at this time should they wish to comment. But as there are no issues with this particular application, we can move forward. Anybody? If not, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time and ask for a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the liquor license application for J.L. Wong LLC, doing business as China Star.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve this liquor license application. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, 1 absent. Next item, could I please have the first reading of Bill 3361 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3361 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, vacating a 20-foot driveway easement being part of Lot 3 and Tract A of Windsor Commons, also being part of Lot A, replat of Tract 4 of Bush Industrial Park, all in the City of Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. I guess I should have opened the public hearing at this time. Oh, no. Now I'll open the public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report. I'll get it right.
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Carteret to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bill 3361 proposes to vacate, excuse me, a 20-foot driveway easement that's located between the existing Brightside Daycare and the undeveloped tract of land immediately to the west. This access easement is not currently utilized, and it's not necessary as part of the plans for the development of the expanded Brightside Daycare. Since it is an easement vacation, it does require a public hearing. It was advertised this evening. I do want to enter into the record the notices that we sent to adjoining property owners, notice of publication in the Journal, the Unified Development Code, the application that was submitted, our growth management plan, and the staff report submitted to you this evening. Easement vacations applications do not require a review by the Planning and Zoning Commission, so it is submitted to the council for action. Again, we did notify the adjoining property owners. This access easement could provide access to Mr. Bright's property, which is to the south. However, he currently utilizes an east-west access easement for his property and had no objections to the vacation of this easement. Staff has submitted proposed findings of fact on the request, and we recommend that the council approve Bill 3361 vacating this 20-foot easement. That concludes staff report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff? Yep, Mr. Holman.
And this is just actually first step in what you were talking about, P&Z hearing coming up and their plans to expand to the north. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. They'll continue to utilize the existing access, which, excuse me, also provides the access to Casey's. So instead of, when you enter, instead of turning to the east, you can turn to the west to access this proposed site. So the easement is not necessary.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. As there is a public hearing on this, and the public hearing is open at this time, I would ask anyone that wished to comment on this particular item, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. Try to keep your comments 5 minutes or less. No one? Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time and ask for a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3361, Bush Industrial Park easement vacation.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3361. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the item? Motion carries 7-0, 1 absent. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3330 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3330 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending Section 405.020H, Section 420.050E, and Section 485.010 of the Unified Development Code of the Raymore City Code.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Carteret to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Bill 3330 proposes a 27th Amendment to our Unified Development Code. Excuse me. Again, as this is a amendment to the code, it does require a public hearing, which was advertised this evening. I want to enter into the record the Growth Management Plan, the Unified Development Code, notice of publication in the Journal, and the staff report submitted to you this evening. This amendment previously came in front of the council back in January. At that time, you deferred action, wanted to have discussion at a work session, which we held in February. Council provided a lot of direction, comments, suggestions that staff took and amended the text of the amendment, resubmitted it to the Planning Commission in March, and it's now before you this evening. The proposed amendment is to allow accessory dwelling units on single-family lots. So the proposed ordinance is really broken down into 3 areas. I'll just briefly go through each of the 3 areas. The first part of the ordinance would add definitions to the text of the UDC. This is an important part of the amendment, especially on the attached accessory dwelling units. So we are proposing to define attached accessory dwelling units as a dwelling that's attached to or located within the principal structure, the principal home on the property, but physically separated from that home. So what we have done is if you have, if you want to add a unit to your property and there is a doorway that allows you to go between the home and the unit, it is not specifically defined as an accessory dwelling unit. It's simply an addition to your home. So it does not have to fall under any of the code requirements that we have. So that's an important distinguishment that we made from your February work session. If there's no common doorway between the two, then it is truly an accessory dwelling unit. It has to fall under the requirements of this ordinance. The second part of the ordinance deals with the use table. What this would do is allow the accessory dwelling units in our R1 zoning district. We currently allow them in agricultural, rural estate, and rural residential. This ordinance would allow it in single-family zoning districts. And then the third part of the ordinance establishes the design criteria. So what we did here, we broke it out and established slightly different criteria for your large lot properties, which would be your agricultural rural estate. We don't have quite the same standards that we would have in the R1 zone lot. Again, that's trying to take into account the larger acreage that we have in the A and RE district. In the A to RE, you're allowed to have an accessory dwelling unit up to the size of your home. In the R1 district, you're limited to 60% of the floor area of your home with a maximum of 1,000 square foot. Again, we have that additional restriction in the R1 district because we are dealing with smaller lots, and we want it to truly be a unit that is not as large as the existing home, but still large enough to be able to accommodate the needs of the resident. So that's probably the principal difference between the standards we've established for each district. Planning Commission, again, held a public hearing on this. They submitted proposed findings of fact. It was at their March 20th meeting that they did by a 9-0 vote, approve the proposed findings of fact and forward this case to the council with a recommendation of approval. I did include their minutes from their meeting. They had a lot of discussion on this ordinance. They felt that the changes that staff made from the early version after going through the work session, that this is an ordinance that they strongly supported and wanted to bring that forward for council consideration this evening. So that would conclude staff report at this time.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions of staff? Mr. Holman.
More of a comment. Mr. Carteret, when I first entered city service, I think 12 or 13 years ago, you were my first teacher, and that has not changed. You are continually teaching me as I learned, especially with this packet tonight. Don't overlook the definitions. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? And Jim's right, the council or the Planning and Zoning Commission did take into account comments that were made by the city council and reconsidered that, and it was some great discussion on that. I do recall that. If there's nothing else, the public hearing is still open. I would entertain anyone from the audience that wishes to speak to this particular topic to please step forward. State your name and address for the record. Anyone? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time, and I would ask for I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3330, 27th Amendment to the Unified Development Code.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve Bill 3330. Any further discussion? Mr. Holman.
Just a comment, sir. My kudos to you, Mr. Carteret, your department, and Planning and Zoning. I really thought this was well thought out and well written. I know we were talking about this as long ago as 10 years ago. People will refer, they probably don't refer to it as accessory dwelling. The more common term is granny flats, if you will. And I'm glad we finally got this passed to where we allow them in some of the other districts as well. But we also maintain the standards that we need for health and safety reasons and things like that. So well done. Thank you.
Ms. Abdelgawad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take a minute also to say thanks to Mr. Carteret and his staff. I know that this has kind of been a long time coming. As Mr. Holman mentioned, we started talking about this quite some time ago. This has been before the council a few times at work session. It's been before P&Z. Multiple times we've worked with emergency services to be sure that we are creating something that's going to work in all areas. So I think that congrats on the teamwork that we've put into this, and I think that we've come up with something that really is going to work well for Raymore. I know in hearing this presentation several times as it's transitioned, this is something that not lots of other cities have. I think this is something that's going to kind of set us ahead of other cities as far as the community for all ages. So I'm really proud of our work on this and want to thank you and your staff for all of your work on this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to also say that we worked on this in 2013, planning and zoning, and I know there was a time we had a vote on it, and I was the only one that voted against something, and it was based on a definition. And I felt like the definition that we were trying to put forth was not the one that the national standard would use, and so I felt that was maybe poorly worded, and everything has been addressed in this version very well. Appreciate that. So it's good to see the work continuing.
Thank you. Anyone else? If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. Could I please have the first reading of Bill, this is a resolution. Could I please have the reading of Resolution 18-26?
The reading of Resolution 18-26 by title only. A resolution of the Raymore City Council approving design concepts for the 2018 sidewalk project.
Thank you. This also requires a public hearing, and I would ask for a staff report.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Krass to make staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'd like to introduce Greg Rokos, the Assistant Director of Engineering, to make the staff report this evening, and Mr. Carteret will be broadcasting the presentation to your monitors.
Thank you, Mr. Krass, Mr. Fearborn, Mayor, and members of the council. This evening I present the 2018 sidewalk program. This program is to add sidewalks to neighborhoods that originally did not have sidewalks when they were developed. In the map you can see the 3 blue lines that indicate where the sidewalks we are planning on adding this year. To show more detail, the 3 that we're talking about, the first one is on North Park Drive from West Walnut Street to West Maple. The sidewalk will be placed on the west side of the North Park Drive between these 2 streets. Oops. The next one will be on West Maple Street from North Park Drive to South Woodson Drive. This sidewalk will be placed on the south side of the road between these 2 streets. Our third one will be added to Park Court. And this is the entrance into Memorial Park, and this is where the new trails have been added to the park, or are being added right now. And so as you can see in the picture, it'll be added to the west side and it'll be continuous into the park. We held a public meeting actually out on these streets where we invited all the property owners via mail, and so they would have an opportunity to come out and talk to us. We had one property owner contact us. We met them at their home, showed them what we're going to do. They're new to the area, we're unfamiliar with what the project was. We explained it to them, they were very pleased. We once again notified everyone by writing about the meeting tonight, so everyone had an opportunity to be notified 2 times about the project that's coming up. This is our staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Any questions of staff? Mr. Holman?
Mr. Rokos, as you stated in the beginning part of your presentation, this is an initiative by the city to put sidewalks in neighborhoods that weren't required to put them in when the houses were built in the other older part of towns, obviously. Do we have any kind of estimate on when we will have accomplished that goal? Because obviously if a new subdivision goes in today, they're required to put sidewalks in as part of that. So at some point this initiative will be complete, and I just didn't know if we had a timeline on when we thought that might be complete.
There are 2 more areas. There are 2 streets that can be added next year, and will be another project that will be added. There are a couple other single blocks or portions of blocks that can be added to that project too. So we have 1 good, clear additional year of projects. Beyond that, there is 1 more area that has been listed in the program, and that's on Sandpiper and Heron. And those 2 streets actually do not have curbs at this time. So that adds an additional level of difficulty of being able to add a sidewalk where there's no curbs. So that would have to be addressed 2 years from now.
But we've come quite a ways in this. We've gotten most of the areas addressed.
We're right toward the end.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. There is a public hearing that is open at this time. If anyone in the audience would like to address the council at this time regarding this subject, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time, and I would entertain a motion to dispose of Resolution 18-26.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 1826, adopting the 2018 sidewalk project.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve Resolution 18-26. Any further discussion? Ms. Abdelgawad.
I just have a quick question. It seems like we're doing less this year than we have in the past. I'm just curious, how does the budget for this project this year compare to what we've spent on it in past years?
The budget is the same. We're just a little concerned about construction costs. They have been going up, so we did our engineer's estimate, and based on that, that's the program that we are moving forward with.
Thank you. Anyone else? If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, 1 absent. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3360 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3360 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Kansas City Audio Visual for the purchase and installation of an audio-visual system for the Raymore Activity Center in the amount of $17,771.95, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints and declaring this bill as an emergency.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Mayberry to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Good evening. Staff had issued RFP 18-229-501 for the purchase and installation of an audiovisual system for the Raymore Activity Center. Staff had received a single bid from Kansas City Audiovisual for this RFP. City's procurement officer has verified that the conditions were outlined in section 135.020 and they have been met. Staff reviewed the price submitted by the vendor in the amount of $17,771.95 and recommends the award of contract to Kansas City Audiovisual for the purchase and installation of the audiovisual system for the Raymore Activity Center. The reason for this emergency read is that we were when I contacted Kansas City Audiovisual to see what the lead time was on this, some of the specialized equipment for the sound system, they informed me that that'd be at least 3 weeks. So what we're trying to accomplish here is to basically get all the gymnasium equipment out there before we put the court floors in. So I would take any questions that you may have.
Any questions, Mr. Holman?
Mr. Mayberry, am I correct? This is the same vendor that did the sound system for Centerview, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the Boston Pops would be envious of that sound system. Thank you, sir.
And Ms. Abdelgawad.
I just noticed that the amount is quite a bit lower than what's budgeted. Is this just part of what we're purchasing, or?
Yes, the budget amount is my total budget for the Raymore Activity Center. That's included the fiber installation. That $57,000 includes all of that.
Go ahead.
I'll follow up. So we can expect to see one other part of the audiovisual system, like a contract for a second part, or how many different pieces of it will we have?
No, this will include the sound system out in the gymnasium. It also includes the network drops that we have to have. It also includes the assisted listening devices. It also includes the TVs in the lobby, the TV in the lobby, TV in the break room for the camp counselors, rack. Okay, I just lost my train of thought. Switches, things like that we need.
Mr. Mayberry, I think the question was, is there another RFP out there that will be coming before the council to spend the rest of the money?
No, the rest of it was purchased through state vendors, single source vendor like Comcast that had to do our fiber because they connect up our fiber. This will be the only RFP for this project from me. So.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, Jim. As this requires, do we have to pass the first reading first?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve Bill 3360.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3360, award of contract, audiovisual system, Raymore Activity Center.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3360. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. As this is a declared emergency reading of this bill, I would ask for the second reading of Bill 3360 in its entirety.
The second reading of Bill 3360 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Kansas City Audiovisual for the purchase and installation of an audiovisual system for the Raymore Activity Center in the amount of $17,771.95, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints and declaring this bill as an emergency. Whereas, in accordance with the City of Raymore purchasing policy, city staff issued request for proposal 18-229-501, calling for the purchase and installation of an audiovisual system for the Raymore Activity Center. And whereas city staff recommends the purchase and installation with Kansas City Audiovisual, now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Raymore, Missouri as follows. Section 1. The city manager is hereby directed and authorized to enter into an agreement with Kansas City Audiovisual for the purchase and installation of the audiovisual system for the Raymore Activity Center. Section 2, this ordinance shall become effective on and after the date of passage and approval. Section 3, emergency reading. This bill is declared and authorized as an emergency and will be read in its entirety to allow for the installation of the audiovisual system prior to the installation of the Raymore Activity Center court floor and stay on the current timeline for completion of the project. Section 4, effective date. The effective date and approval of this ordinance shall be coincidental with the mayor's signature and attestation by the city clerk. Section 5, severability. If any section, subsection, sentence, clause, phrase, or portion of this ordinance is for any reason held invalid or unconstitutional by any court of competent jurisdiction, such portion shall be deemed a separate, distinct, and independent provision, and such holding shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions thereof. Duly read this first time this 14th day of May, 2018. Be it remembered that the above ordinance was approved and adopted this 14th day of May, 2018 by the following vote.
Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3360?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3360, award of contract, audiovisual system, Raymore Activity Center.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the second reading of the emergency reading of this bill. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. Can I please have the first reading of Bill 3363 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3363 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with HTK Architects for the City Hall front entry modifications design project, City Project number 18-264-301, in the amount of $23,929, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Krass to make a staff report on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, what council is requested to do this evening is engage HTK Architects to provide design services for two projects that are integral and included in this year's capital budget. The first being modifications to the front entry. I'm sure as council has noticed as they've entered the building, there's quite a bit of rust on the existing storefront due to some leaks. Also, there has been a chronic leak into the evidence room through the front slab. So this project is to design a solution to that, which we believe will involve moving the storefront out closer to the steps so it covers that slab and expanding the lobby area. Also, with this, the current windows at the various customer service counters do not provide a very good customer service interaction between staff and the visiting public. So we are looking to modify those counters. There's kind of a fine balance between maintaining security and customer service, and we will look forward to working with HTK on those solutions. We do recommend awarding the contract to them. That concludes staff report.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions? Mr. Holman?
You always have to start off with the first step of any project, obviously design. Do we have any kind of estimate on when we would hope to begin the actual physical renovation of the property? I know we've talked about it for a while.
I would hope by early fall.
Outstanding. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir. If there's nothing else, I'd like to entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3363.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3363, award of contract, City Hall front entry modifications design.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3363. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3362 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3362 by title only. An ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri approving and authorizing the city manager to enter into a lease agreement with Selective Site Development, Inc., a Kansas corporation for the property located at 105 East Elm Street, Raymore, Missouri.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Krass to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Council is being requested to approve a lease agreement with Selective Site Design for the Elm Street water tower site. This project will involve demolition of the existing water tower and reservoir and fences and leveling the site, and then erecting a cellular tower. There's a drawing attached to the memo that kind of shows up before and after of that. Last year, we did conduct a good neighbor meeting with the residents down there, took some comments regarding what was happening with the project and incorporated those into the contract. So all of the approvals are in place. Part of the delay has been working with T-Mobile, who currently has a lease on the water tower, to get them to negotiate with SSD to move their facilities from the water tower to the cellular tower. That has been worked out. We've also been working closely with, Public Safety and Mark regarding coordinating the 911 equipment that is on the water tower as well. So we do recommend approval of the lease agreement with SSD. That concludes staff report.
Thank you, Mike. Is there questions of staff? Ms. Abdel, go on.
Do the people of Ward 4 need to bring cookies for getting rid of the eyesore? Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question as far as the new tower, will it allow us to have more clients to use the tower?
There are provisions for that within the lease agreement.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mike. If there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to dispose of Bill 3362.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3362, cellular site lease agreement.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3362. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. Could you please read Resolution 18-06?
Your Honor,
Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Hold on here.
Thank you, sir.
I skipped over the title there. Okay, so now we're at a point in our meeting. I would entertain a motion to begin this particular item on the agenda, which is the meeting of the Raymore Community Foundation Board.
Mr. Mayor, I move to recess our council meeting and conduct the meeting of Raymore Community Foundation.
I'll second that, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to recess the city council meeting and convene a meeting of the Raymore Community Foundation. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Do I need to do a roll call on that?
You'll need to call to order the Community Foundation meeting.
We'll do a roll call.
Mr. President, and then ask for a roll call.
Okay, so that motion carried, 7-0, one absent. So we'll now convene and move into, the council will then consider the items on the Raymore Community Foundation agenda, and I would ask for a roll call to convene the Raymore Community Foundation Board.
Director Abdelgawad?
Here.
Director Barber?
Present.
Director Berenson?
Present.
Director Burke?
Present.
Director Serco?
Present.
Director Holman?
Present.
Director Kellogg absent. Director Townsend?
Present.
Director Turnbow?
Present. So we have a quorum. I will go ahead and see, let's go ahead and move into the agenda here on the, I'll ask for a staff report.
You'll have an approval of the minutes. I'm sorry, Mayor.
It's just, yeah, it is
All right.
simply just
Minutes of the
following.
packet. All right. Oh, I got them. January 8th. Gotcha. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the January 8, 2018 meeting of the Raymore Municipal Assistance Corporation.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the minutes of the January 8th, 2018 Raymore Community Foundation Board.
Okay.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes of the meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. Now we'll move into the business on the foundation's agenda. Mr. Fearborn?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Zur to make the staff report on Resolution 1806.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Chair and Directors of the Raymore Community Foundation. I am happy to provide information with regard to this evening's activity for the foundation. As you may recall from your prior meetings, the foundation was established for originally debt acquisition purposes. We have repurposed that community foundation for purposes of being able to allow for donations by members within the community to the foundation. We are seeking to be able to complete the process for a 501c3 tax-exempt designation for the foundation. In doing so, we have completed the substantial work associated with that application, and in working through it have identified a need to adopt a confidentiality and conflict of interest policy. You'll find the policy is included within the packet of materials, and you will also find that much of the policy is very similar to what you would be under for conflicts of interest as well as confidentiality provisions as members of your council position. Again, this evening you're acting under the terms of your position as a director of the Raymore Community Foundation. We have made amendments to the foundation organizational documents to be able to reference the 4 areas of focus that the foundation funds will be utilized for, and again would request this evening approval of the foundation's confidentiality and conflict of interest policy. I would note one minor change under paragraph number 7, B7, which references in conducting the periodic reviews and obtaining the annual statements provided for in these bylaws. That should actually read this policy. So that would be the only correction I would request to make on it, and would be happy to provide any additional information or answer questions that the Board of Directors might have.
Okay. Are there questions, Mr. Yes.
More comments, sir, just for a point of clarification, although it was proper. Our meeting minutes from January 8th were actually of the RAMAC Foundation, but that foundation, or that entity has now been changed. The name has been changed to the Raymore Community Foundation Board. So anyone was confused, as I was for just a moment, yes. We've now changed the name and scope of the entity itself.
As a point of clarification, the meeting actually started as RAMAC and ended as the Raymore Community Foundation. So it was a little, like many of the items on the agenda tonight, it's a little goofy.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions of staff? And as Mr. Zur has outlined, the resolution before us tonight is the resolution adopting the confidentiality and conflict of interest policy. Correct?
That's correct, sir. And staff would recommend, when the motion is made, that it be with the amended language that Mr. Zur has indicated this evening.
Okay. So I will entertain that motion.
Mr. President, I move we approve Resolution 1806 with the amendments that Mr. Zur talked about, adopting the confidentiality and conflict of interest policy and procedure.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the confidentiality and conflict of interest policy and procedure resolution with the mentioned changes that Mr. Zur recommended. Any further discussion? Ms. Abdelgawad.
Just to clarify, that amendment is changing the words "these bylaws" in the Part B, number 7, to say "this policy."
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. This time I would entertain a motion to adjourn from this meeting. Is that correct? Or
And
another item?
And reconvene
yes.
the City Council meeting.
There you go.
Mr. President, I move we adjourn the Raymore Community Foundation meeting and reconvene the City Council meeting.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn the meeting of the Raymore Community Foundation and reconvene the City Council meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries 7-0, one absent. And am I done? All right, other than public comments, right? And Mayor Council communication. So at this point on our agenda, we're at the public comment section. If anyone would like to address the council at this time, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and keep your comments to a maximum of 5 minutes or less. Hearing that, we'll move on to the Mayor and Council communication. Mr. Townsend, I'll let you start off with this tonight, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing this evening.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Burke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, I wanted to thank the work that the Planning and Zoning Commission has done on the accessory dwellings amendments. And I wanted to talk about I actually talked about this last week. Somebody that I work with the son-in-law and the mother-in-law of a family, and they actually are, one person lives in Raymore, and they're going to be moving to a larger plot of land so they can build a granny flat and a home, and that way there's going to be so many benefits that they talked about as far as being with their grandchildren, helping out with babysitting, and just being together as a family, and they're really looking forward to it. They're very excited, and although I'm losing a great family for my ward at some point, I'm happy for them to be excited in this new journey for them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Serco.
Yes, one thing I'm very happy, the bicycles. I know I've talked to the officers about the new bikes coming, and we got to see what you have, and I think that's great because they need that type of bike to be able to patrol properly in our city, and I'm very happy for that. I think it's a good add-on, and I had the opportunity at the pancake breakfast to get there and be able to acknowledge the city workers, ones who work here in the building, the guys, men and women who work on the streets, and our city crews, and I acknowledge each and every one that I could and tell them how we, they're they're one of the big parts of our city. You got your police and the fire, but the city crews that work in and inside, diligently inside here and diligently outside in the winter and the summer, snow removals, I got to be able to tell them they do a fantastic job. And I think we should always, acknowledge the ones who really are kind of behind the scenes. And that's our city employees. They're always behind the scenes. They sit here and see us on council. We go out and they know you're a councilman, but you guys do a tremendous job as city employees of Raymore, and you make us the city that we are. Thank you.
Mr. Holman.
I will yield my time to the Mayor Pro Tem of the great city of Raymore, sir.
Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Holman. Mr. Suko, I think the same thing. And I was looking at the 3 proclamations. Monica Lewis, she's been one of our rocks as citizen volunteer, doing so much for the city, and it sounds like she's going to continue, which that's good news. And Mr. Holman and I have the pleasure of serving her in Ward 3, and she certainly is somebody that really cares and loves this city. And the Public Works, you can't say enough about them, and I realize we didn't stand up and applaud, and I apologize for that. We should have, but I applaud you guys every day. I mean, from turning my water on to everything we take for granted, like Mr. Circo said, we couldn't do it without it. And and I think we have the best police department in the metro, maybe anywhere, and I'm really proud to have them be a part of our city. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Abdelgawad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too just wanted to take a minute at the end of the meeting to again thank Monique Lewis for all of the volunteer work that she does in our community and even at the state level with the silver-haired legislature. She's been doing a lot of awesome work in Raymore for many, many years and continues and will continue to do that. So if you have a chance to see her, give her a pat on the back and tell her thanks for all she does. Additionally, Public Works, lots of times you guys go unnoticed, but when something goes wrong, everyone notices. So thanks for the work that you do that goes unnoticed, hopefully more often than not. And then, of course, National Peace Officers Memorial Week, that of course is near and dear to my heart. I would encourage anybody during this week to give thanks to our local police officers, to police officers, anytime you see them, but especially to take a minute and think of the families who've lost an officer serving in the line of duty, and give them support if you have the opportunity, but just recognize that they've given the ultimate sacrifice. So take a minute and thank the police officers this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just echo what they've already said here. I also was very happy to see the police officers with their new bicycles out here and look forward to seeing them out on the street patrolling on them. And I have to also mention Monique Lewis. I've only met her once. I've seen her name all over the place here in the city. She was a very, very sharp individual. You don't get anything past her. So anyway, I want to thank her for her service to the city, along with Public Works as well. Great job for Public Works, and thank you.
Thank you. And I would also echo what's been set up here. Monique did a great job working with Jim Cataret's team on the Community for All Ages. She's involved in so many other things and is just a joy to be around. She's a pushy little thing, though. Boy, she'll get you working hard, and she certainly is one of those kind of volunteers that will inspire others to do things they didn't think they could do, but she'll get you working. And we thank her for being part of the Raymore community. As far as Public Works goes, Mike, thank you. Thank everybody on your team. I've loved working with them since I came here in '99, and I continue to love working with them as your mayor now. And it's a great group of people, as is the police department, who I have a special affection for it, naturally. And Chief Zimmerman does a great job of, she's taken this to the next level, and she's pretty awesome. I thank you, Jan, for all the work that you do and that you put into it. A couple of weeks ago, after our last council meeting, we had a get-together with some folks from Nepal, and we hosted it here at the Centerview building. And that was actually pretty interesting. These folks had set up, the government there, the national government, has set up a system by which their communities within their larger metropolitan areas are broken down very similar to a mayor and city council form of government. And through a connection with some folks that did mission work over there from the Harrisonville area, we were able to meet up with them. Councilwoman Judy Bowman from down there she actually put most of it together. And folks from Raymore here, Mr. Fearborn, thank you for setting up all there was a great presentation by all the department heads and directors here in the city to that group. They were completely overwhelmed by that, as were the folks over at Belton overwhelmed them with their tiny little water purification and treatment facility there that they have. They got to see that, which is one of their main priorities naturally, because there is still some raw sewage running in the streets and goes in directly into their rivers. So they are really trying to clean up their country and become a next level government. That was fun to be a part of that and meet those folks. So with that, I think we're ready to adjourn or actually go into executive session, correct? So I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I move we go into executive session to discuss litigation and land acquisition matters in accord with RSMO 610.021, subsections 1 and 2.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thanks. Motion's been made and seconded to move into executive session. Can I please have the roll call?
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Yes.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Berenson?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Serko?
Yes.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Kellogg, absent. Councilmember Townsend?
Yes.
Okay, we will now move into executive session, and when it's adjourned, we'll adjourn back into regular session for a final adjournment. Thank you.